Baseball. One of the slowest damn sports that make you want to fall asleep half of the time, while also being one of the most exciting, crazy, high-energy games you can be at. Now, there are two reasons why you might be here. Either you are here because you actually want to learn baseball, or you already know baseball and you just want to, actually, you forgot to talk. I love baseball, and I want you to love it too, so I'm going to do my best to explain this as simply as I can. Baseball can be a little tricky to explain, and I'm about to throw a lot of information at you, so I apologize in advance if anything gets confusing. The MLB, or Major League Baseball, is comprised of 30 teams that are broken down into two leagues, the American League and the National League, which is further broken down into 3 divisions per league, East, West, and Central. These divisions consist of 5 teams each. The MLB season lasts from late March, early April to late September, early October, and the postseason can run all the way into early November. It's worth mentioning spring training in February, which is basically preseason, so we essentially get baseball almost all year around. There are 162 games played during the regular season, and each team is working their way towards the World Series, the baseball championship. The MLB is the highest level of baseball in the US, and while there are other major baseball organizations in the world such as the NPB or the KBO, we will just be covering the MLB today. I also have to mention the MILB, or Minor League Baseball. This is the system players work up through and develop on their path to the MLB, the lowest level being Single A and the highest level being AAA, before a player is called up to the major leagues. Fun fact, I have actually had the opportunity to collab with the Lake County Captains, my favorite minor league team, which are the affiliates of my favorite MLB team, the Cleveland Guardians. Now that I've probably already confused you on teams and how baseball is structured, let's get into what you're actually here for. On the field, there are 4 total bases: first, second, third, and home, 9 defensive players, and 4 umpires, 1 at each base. Umpires are responsible for calling balls and strikes, which we'll talk about later, and enforcing the rules of the game. They are the refs of baseball. The goal of baseball is for a team to score more runs than the other team. Please, for the love of God, do not call them points. Oh my God. Teams take turns trying to score while the defensive team tries to stop them from scoring through what are called innings. There are 9 innings in a game in which the offensive team, the team trying to score, continues until they accumulate 3 outs, and then the teams swap places. The offensive team must make their way all the way around the bases back to home to score. An out can occur in various different ways, and I won't be covering every single one, but I will be explaining the most common ones. The first way is a strikeout. Now, to explain this one, I'll have to explain the strike zone. If you ever watch baseball on TV, you may have noticed this little square in front of the batter. This is called the strike zone, an area over home plate that determines whether a pitch is called a ball or a strike once it passes a batter. Now, what is determined a strike and what is a ball? A strike is when the batter fails to make contact with the ball when it passes home plate, but there's a little more to a strike than just swinging and missing. If a batter swings and does not make contact with the ball, regardless if the ball is in the strike zone or not, this is a strike. If the batter does not swing and the ball passes home plate in the strike zone, this is also a strike. If a batter receives 3 strikes, they are out. I have to bring up foul balls here because fouls actually count towards a batter's strike count. A batter can foul off balls basically infinitely. However, assuming the batter doesn't have any strikes yet, the first 2 times a ball is fouled, these are strikes. After that though, the batter can foul off as many as he wants or is able to, and we have seen some pretty lengthy at-bats because of this. Keep in mind, however, it is possible for a fielder to catch a ball in foul territory, which results in an out. With the addition of the pitch clock, if the batter is not in the batter's box with at least 8 seconds on the clock, this is a strike. A batter must avoid being hit by a pitch. If a batter does not attempt to get out of the way of a wild pitch or even leans into it and gets hit, this is also a strike. The reason for this is because if a batter is hit with a ball, they are awarded a walk, which means they are automatically allowed to go to first base, and they obviously don't want players abusing this. Hence why the whole try not to get hit system. Okay, enough about strikes. What is a ball? This one is a lot more simple. A ball is called when a pitcher throws the ball outside of the strike zone and the batter does not swing. If a pitcher throws 4 balls, the batter automatically advances to first. As mentioned before, this is called a walk. Just keep in mind that a batter going to first in general is not called a walk. A walk is only from receiving 4 balls or being hit by a pitch. If a batter hits the ball and makes it to first without getting out, this is called a hit. Since I don't really know where else to mention it, I'll just put it here. If a batter makes it to first safely, this is called a single. If the batter makes it to second base safely in the same play, this is a double. Third is a triple, and if the batter manages to make it all the way around back to home somehow in a single play, this is called an inside the park home run. A regular home run, what you're probably familiar with, is a batter hitting the ball and it leaves the park. I know we already mentioned fouls briefly, but I'm going to add a little bit more that I didn't mention, like what is a foul ball in the first place. A foul ball is deemed when the batter hits the ball outside of fair territory that is marked by these lines. A batter can hit a ball out of the park, also known as a home run, like I just said. But if the ball goes left of the left foul pole or right of the right foul pole without hitting either pole, this is called a foul. It's important to note that while the first two fouls count as a strike against the batter, the final strike cannot be the result of a foul ball unless the batter tips the ball and the catcher catches it. Okay, enough about strikes and balls. The next way an out can occur is a ground out. A ground out happens when the batter hits the ball on the ground towards a fielder who then throws it to first and touches the bag before the runner gets there. Two outs can occur during a double play where most commonly, a ball is grounded somewhere near second base, usually forcing the advancing runner out and then throwing out the runner heading towards first. Though extremely uncommon, triple plays are also a thing, and you can probably guess how it happens. Another way to record an out is if a defender can catch a ball before it hits the ground or goes over a wall or fence. These are typically referred to as a pop out, which is when the ball is hit high and around the infield, or a fly out, which tends to be hit more into the outfield. Other ways to get out are things such as getting tagged in the base paths, picked off, or caught stealing, but we'll go more into detail on that later. In baseball, there are 9 numbered positions. Our first position is the pitcher. The pitcher's responsibility is to throw pitches to the opposing team's batter with the intent of getting them out. A pitcher is also responsible for picking off a runner under certain circumstances. A pickoff is when a pitcher attempts to get a runner out who is leading off or essentially standing a few feet away from the bag when the pitcher is pitching. This is done by runners to attempt to gain an advantage to advance to the next base. Now, there are very specific types of pitchers for specific types of the game, but I'm only going to cover a few that I think is really important for you to know right now. First, you have your starting pitcher, who starts the game and generally pitches through a significant amount of innings, but this can change depending on their performance. Following your starting pitchers, you have your relief pitchers. Relief pitchers are essentially any pitcher who comes out after the starter and can be further broken down into multiple roles. But I'm only going to be talking about the closer. The closer is responsible for throwing the final pitches of the game, preventing any runs from scoring. Next is the catcher. The catcher is the player who plays between the batter and the home plate umpire. You may think that their job is just to catch the balls thrown by the pitcher, but they actually have really important responsibilities beyond just catching the ball. The catcher is the only defensive player who has a full view of the entire field, and it is their job to communicate everything that is happening to their team and lead defensive plays, as well as making plays themselves. They may, for example, attempt to get out a runner who is trying to steal or tagging out a runner coming home. Let me talk about what a stealing is really quick. A stolen base is when a player advances to the next base while the pitcher is about to throw. It's basically when a player tries to run to the next base without getting caught, but it's not the result of a batter getting a hit. It's purely a runner just trying to get to the next base as quickly as they can while the pitcher is about to deliver a pitch. Occasionally, you may see a catcher making these little signs with their hands towards the pitcher, and in response, you may see the pitcher nodding or shaking his head. What is happening is that the catcher is calling for specific types of pitches based on the opposing batter's weaknesses or tendencies. In this video, I will not be covering the different types of pitches because I think at the moment that's a little too much for you to know, like right now, but if you are interested, I can make a video in the future about the different pitch types. It is very important that the catcher and pitcher have good chemistry and can work really well with each other in order to be successful. Recently, the league has introduced the PitchCom, which is an electronic device that transmits the signals from the catcher to the pitcher, so you may not see the catcher physically signing anymore, but it's still very important as they may, for whatever reason, return to physical signing. Catchers are very easily recognizable by the gear they wear to protect themselves from foul balls, balls thrown in the dirt, or player collisions at home. Next, we have our first baseman. First basemen are responsible for making most plays at first base. Pretty self-explanatory from the name. First basemen are ideally very flexible as they may need to stretch to catch balls thrown to them to get the out at first. And they also have to have quick reflexes in case any hard hits come to them from near the foul line. Fourth on the field, we have our second baseman. Second basemen are generally fast and able to throw the ball quickly to get outs and are often a key part of double plays. Fun fact, second basemen are primarily righties. This is because left-handed infielders are at a disadvantage because they sort of have to turn awkwardly to make throws compared to a righty righty who is naturally already in a natural position to throw to first base. This applies to pretty much all the infielders, by the way. In our 5th spot, we have our third baseman. Third baseman must be able to make quick throws and very long, accurate throws to get the outs at first. You start to notice that a lot, if not a majority of the outs happen at first. Similarly to first baseman, they must be able to catch quick, hard hits that come straight to them. Marked as number 6 is the shortstop. Shortstops are defensive players who play between second and third base and are considered to be one of the most demanding positions. They must be very agile and have very quick reflexes as many balls come their way, and they must be able to make long, accurate throws like third base. Our 7th spot is left field. They must be able to catch very well and possess great defensive skills as many balls are hit their way, since a majority of batters are righties and they tend to hit towards left field. Compared to some of the other outfielder positions, they don't generally need to have as much of a strong throwing arm since they're often throwing shorter distances compared to that of center or right field. Speaking of center field, that is our 8th spot. Center fielders play in between left and right as they need to be fast, cover a lot of outfield, and have an accurate throwing arm for very long distances, as well as excellent catching abilities. Center fielders are considered the captain of the outfield, and they're responsible for calling off the left or right fielders if they are the ones to make a catch. Calling off basically just means telling the other players around them that they're going to make the catch to avoid any potential player collisions or any errors from happening. Finally, we have our 9th position, the right fielder. While not as many balls come to them as left or center, right fielders ideally have the strongest throwing arm of the 3 outfielders, as they have to be able to throw really great distances to get the ball into the infield, and they don't need to be as particularly as fast as center fielders, for example. As a bonus, I'm going to mention the DH. A DH, or designated hitter, is the player who is not playing any defensive positions in a game, but can add value offensively. The purpose of the DH is to take the place of a pitcher in a lineup, since pitchers don't typically hit unless you're Shohei Ohtani or Babe Ruth. DHs are chosen for multiple different reasons. Some clubs may have a player who is primarily the DH. A DH may also be chosen if they would like to give one of their regular players a rest day, but still use their offensive abilities. DHs are expected to be able to play offensively above average since they do not provide any defensive value in a game. Okay, stats aren't really that scary. They're actually really easy and you should know them. Baseball is super stats heavy and a very analytical sport, but it really isn't that complicated, mostly. I'm going to go over just a few very basic stats that you're going to hear or see a ton, but if you want to learn more about stats, Foolish Bailey actually makes really interesting videos involving a lot of different stats, but that are really easy to follow, so go check out his channel. And I know there are a few of you watching who already knows all of this, who are going to be like, you forgot about WRC Plus and OPS Plus, I know, but they don't need to know that right now. Anyways, we're going to start with the slash line. The slash line is made up of 3 stats that make up a player's offensive performance. The slash line represents the player's batting average, on-base percentage, and slugging percentage. Now, what does this all mean? The batting average is basically how many hits a batter gets divided by how many times they're at bat. Remember, in order for a batter to record a hit, they must get on base successfully, literally hitting the ball, but getting out is not counted as a hit. The higher the number, the better. A batting average above 300 is considered really good, all-star level even, but the league average batting average is around 250. Next on the slash line is on-base percentage. This one is pretty self-explanatory, but it's basically how often a batter gets on base, regardless of how they got there, hits, walks, etc. The last stat in the slash line is slugging percentage. This stat basically measures a batter's power and is the amount of total bases divided by their total at-bats. Don't worry too much about this one though, it's probably the least important of the slash line. Moving on from the stat line, we have RBIs. RBI stands for runs batted in. A batter earns RBIs when their at-bat results in another teammate scoring. For example, if there is a runner on third base and the batter hits a base hit, this brings the runner at third home to score and awards the batter an RBI. The next stat I'm going to talk about is ERA, which is a pitching stat. ERA stands for earned run average and is the total amount of runs allowed divided by the amount of innings pitched times 9. That sounds a little complicated, but all you need to know is the lower the number, the better. An ERA of 2 or lower is considered very good, while an ERA around 4 is about average. The lower the better, the higher the not better. Now this stat is really not that necessary for you to know, however, it's literally everywhere, so I feel like I have to mention it. WAR. WAR stands for wins above replacement and essentially means how valuable a player is to a team. Think of it as how many more wins a player contributes to a team compared to if he were replaced by a different player, like a minor league player. For example, a player with 0 WAR, if replaced by a minor league player, would maintain the same amount of offensive productivity compared to someone like prime Mike Trout, one of the greatest players of all time, and has such a high WAR that he is pretty much irreplaceable. Okay, enough of all these boring stats. Let's move on to how to read the scoreboard. If you've ever gone to a game, you will see the scoreboard, but there's quite a bit going on, so let's break it down. Now, all scoreboards have more or less the same amount of info on them. Some might just have a few extra stats or something, but we're gonna cover what's most commonly shared upon all of them. To start, on the sides, you will often see the lineup, which is the order that the players bat in along with their batting average. You may occasionally see the fielders and their positions as well. There may be some additional information about whichever player is batting, but let's talk about the most important part, the actual scoring. These 9 boxes display each inning and how many hits were recorded every inning for each team. R stands for runs, which is the score. H stands for hits, so this is all of these numbers added up. E means errors, which is when a fielder makes a mistake, allowing a runner to advance when it should have been an out. M, or MVR, means mound visits remaining. A mound visit is when the coach or manager, and essentially some of the other players, go to a pitcher to offer any advice, strategy changes, address issues, etc. with a pitcher. This usually happens when a pitcher is starting to struggle a little bit and they need a new approach. Each team is allowed 4 mound visits per every 9-inning game, and I didn't mention this before, but if the score is tied by the end of the 9 innings, the game will go into extra innings, or basically overtime. The scoreboard will also display how many strikes and balls a batter has, as well as outs. Since we're talking about scoring, I will also talk about the score bug. This is the little scoring infographic that you see pop up on the screen on TV. The score bug may display who is batting and who is pitching, how many pitches the pitcher has thrown, the batter's batting average, the score, the count, which is how many strikes and balls a batter has, outs, and runners on base. The inning will also be shown with an up or down triangle. The triangle shows which half of the inning it is. The top of the inning is the inning where the visiting team bats, and the bottom of the inning is when the home team bats. So I think I ended up explaining way more than I kind of meant to, but baseball is a pretty complicated sport, and I wanted you to be able to watch a game and understand what's happening. I left out a ton of stuff that I might end up making more specific videos on. I hope this made sense. If there's anything you need me to clarify, please let me know in the comments. I kind of flew through this and gave you a ton of information so I can understand being overwhelmed. And if you want, I can break them down even further into much easier, smaller sections. But let me know. Thank you for watching.